Deer and beer.
Welcome back to Gear and Beer. Today my guest is Tim Galloway. Tim, cheers.
Cheers. Dude. Thanks for having me.
Man, if I'd known how easy it would have been to get you over here, I'd have called you and been like, hey, come to episode number 4 or whatever. No offense to Justin Butler. That was a random number that came to my brain.
I love Butler. Butler's a good man.
Would it be possible to get the vocals as loud as his guitar was? Because his guitar is a great volume, but
I absolutely can.
I can probably talk quieter that way. Everyone knows how loud my mouth is. There's a bartender.
How quiet mine is.
There's a bartender, Taylor, at Second Fiddle, who literally calls me Loud Rob.
Loud Rob.
Because there's Rob music and then there's Loud Rob on that particular day.
The other Rob is pretty quiet, isn't he?
I can't get it as loud
maybe
as
volume-wise.
his guitar, but
okay, no, it's better.
That's like plus 4 dB.
Yeah, that's good. I noticed it, and it helps. And man, the board. I played at the stage last night, and the board at the stage has got like glitchy faders, where about an hour after the sound engineer left, Rob Music's vocal jumped up like 10 dB, and there was just nothing that we could do about it.
Don't you love it when the engineer just leaves in the middle of your gig?
I mean, I get it. He stayed plenty long.
Does he run like multiple levels or something?
It's the board. They have parts. They're like trying to get it fixed.
Oh no, I mean, is he one of the engineers that has to run like multiple gigs going on at one time?
No, the stage main floor. That's what they do, and he's there for over an hour. He didn't. I mean, this is like 8:30.
Okay.
The volume jump, so like 2 hours into the gig, and I just had to like run my pack way down for the rest of the night. It was awesome. That being said, that's been a great introduction. So I don't like to edit, so I'm sure it'll stay in there. Tim, appreciate you coming, man.
Thanks for having me.
I should have just rowed a boat over to you. It'd probably been faster than driving over here.
Me and Lyndon were talking about that earlier.
I think we figured out that it's between, I don't know where you live, but between where his house is and my house is less than a mile as the bird flies.
So he lives about where I just moved from.
Oh, okay.
And when I pulled your address up, I realized the same thing. I am on the other tip of Mount Juliet up towards the other side of the river. So it's about the same from there.
Man.
Build
crazy.
A bridge, please.
And get over it. But they won't, because there's like, I see all kind of signs posted around here about the people that don't want the development to come through and all the traffic and blah, blah. I was like, there's already traffic. Let's be able to get over there.
If they could just patch it into Old Hickory.
That'd be great. I could believe that.
It wouldn't really go through any neighborhoods. It'd like patch it in like right by a bridge.
Shit, I don't care. Run the ferries. Getting on a ferry would still be faster.
Yeah, it takes 45 minutes to go 2 miles for me.
Right, absolutely, exactly. Yeah, Mount Juliet's even worse, man.
Yeah.
It's like it's even further if you're coming here.
Especially that part where you are.
Yeah.
That's like the least accessible point. There are more inaccessible points in Hendersonville than where I am. The next peninsula over, it's another probably 15 minutes just because of winding through.
I understand.
Little podunk streets. Anyway,
now that we're down to 5
gives
listeners,
a shit about that? As people can see watching on YouTube, Tim has this 335 that we've been listening to while Lyndon and I were being awesome, and it just sounds great.
Well, thank you.
Tell me about this guitar. When you and I first met, you were playing this guitar and this particular Princeton. Didn't think to put a camera on it, so we'll take a picture of it and
All right,
put that in the video.
I will give you stories of the gear first the beer portion of the podcast.
Yes, let's first things first here on gear and beer.
So, guitar amp first. Both have stories.
Hey man, whichever one you feel like starts your narrative.
All right, start with the amp just because it's in there. An ex-girlfriend's dad gave me that old Princeton.
What year is that Princeton?
That one's a 67.
67, okay.
Yeah, and they were cleaning up and found it, and it was his brother's, and long story short, he gave it to me. And even after that ended, we're all still good and kept the amp. He was happy.
Well, I'm sure he heard you play it once. It's like, by God, that amp belongs with that boy. I don't know if that's how he talks. I'm from a country place. You're from a country place.
He was from a very country place. He was awesome. And then the guitar, that's a 69 335 that I've had for, oh my gosh, I bet I've had it.
It looks like a closet classic. There's like nothing wrong with the finish at all.
So when
when
I got it, it looked, in the case, like the original case, it looked brand new. I only met the guy, I think his name was Herbert, and when I was back in Albemarle working at a music store, the guy wanted to sell it, make some money, and he came into the store and said, "Hey, I heard like you're a player, and I want to sell it to somebody who's going to use it." And I
admire that.
I was early 20s. He's like, "Hey, I need to sell it today." He's like, "Will you give me?" It was $600 or $700, which was a lot for me at the time. So anyway, I wrote him a check, and he said, "Well, if you take it today, I'll throw the amp in for another $100, which was a 68 Princeton Reverb, which was brand new, looked brand new, which crazy. I already had one. So I sold it to a friend for like $110. Well, that same day, I was like, so
good of you to pass
I already
it on.
had it, and I was like, I always want to try to pay it forward, so I sold it to him for $110, cost plus 10%. So it was like,
that's
all right,
pretty good.
But yeah, guitar was brand new. It looked brand new, and I got it, and
it still does.
Kind of been. I mean, it's been all over the country, and it's still in good shape. Couple fret jobs, new tuners. That's a Tone Pros bridge. Everything else is completely, the same. But it's been
old Tone Pro bridge. I have one on my Les Paul. It's in Texas.
Nylon saddle sound good on this. Tremolo's pretty good, usually. But it's been my main guitar, one of my main guitars for 15 years.
Do you find that your Bigsby works better in a warmer environment than a colder environment? Because that has been my experience of late.
I have not.
I'm sorry,
really
the opposite of that. Better in cold, worse in warm.
I haven't really noticed one way or the other. Every now and then we'll get some friction points and just kind of make sure it's all oiled and nothing's stuck in the saddles, and it's usually pretty good. Now, I'm not doing dive bombs with it. So.
Well, sure. Would you say that this is your go-to for if you're showing up and you don't know what you're about to get into and you have to bring one guitar, that's a guitar you're going to bring, kind of a thing?
I'd say this or a Tele. Between those two, I feel like can probably get through most things.
I don't have an actual 335. I've got this Sheridan. It's an old one, but it's got minis, so it's not quite the same thing. It's a cool guitar.
Those are cool. It's got the broke string.
It does, and it's thankfully hooked on the.
Well,
I got you.
That's okay. Like I don't want any guitars to be harmed in the making of this film.
Yeah, it's old
okay.
Black joint. But I just broke that. I forgot that I did that. I should change it. Thank you.
I have a name. It's fine.
Lyndon. No, I was trying to think of what strings those were. I was gonna thank the string company for my first broken string in like 10 years. Oh, they're That's what they were.
Oh,
And
all right.
I don't ever use those. And Rob Music gave me a pack. I was like, man, try them. I love them.
Thanks, Rob.
They've got great snap. And boy, do they.
We'll talk after. I have a feeling know exactly what they are.
I bet you do.
Sponsor us.
I bet you do. Send us money. We won't divulge this information.
Yes.
We are for sale. That's not even true.
I mean,
But you can send us money. That is true. We'll put up Tim's Venmo handle. You can send him money.
I'm all for that.
I think it's a good idea, honestly. What
Very
we're
much
here
so.
for. That's what this world runs on.
Venmo.
Venmo, bro. No, I'm sorry. I'm mistaken. The world runs on Dunkin'.
That's it.
The adverts would have you believe. So anyway, I'm tangenting real hard very early. So that bodes well. So 69, 67?
69.
Man,
it's crazy.
it's in the best condition of any 335 that I've ever seen, with the exception of at one point Ford was flipping a 61 or something 335.
Some of the cherry red one.
No, it looked just like this.
I almost bought a early 60s from him. That was a red one not too long ago.
Dude,
I should have.
This was probably
just
4 years ago.
that might have been the same because 2020 and 2021 never really happened.
That's fair.
So
Can't prove it. Can't prove it.
yeah.
That really sounds great. And that's just like literally straight into the amp.
Yeah.
Mostly a 57. That's what you call tone is in the hands of the beholder. Not to say anything about that amazing sounding guitar and amplifier, but I've got like 73 pedals down here. So. And I still don't sound like that.
Oh.
No, so you do a lot of sessions and a lot of acoustic work on these sessions. Are most of your sessions just like one or the other, or do you do a lot of floating? Do you bring a couple of worlds?
Mostly doing like acoustic, mando, banjo, just acoustic utility stuff more than anything.
Bazooki or whatever.
There's a bazooki.
Bazooki, what do you say?
A bazooki.
Bazooki. Pizookie is.
I was going to say, did you call it a pizookie?
Yeah, that's
A pizookie.
Pizookie is the dessert at BJ's Brew House. It's a pizza cookie.
I was going to go way more in the gutter than that.
Of course you were. You're from Mississippi,
Are you?
Yeah.
All right.
the gutter of America.
Mississippi.
Kind of, if we're talking about the river delta.
If we're talking about any aspect of Mississippi,
Hey.
except for the people that I know from there that are awesome. No, but seriously, fuck that place.
Usually do acoustic. Like tomorrow, I'm playing electric and acoustic. Do both fairly regular, and from my own place, I end up doing both a lot.
Sure,
But mostly, especially like pop country sessions, more acoustic than anything.
right on. Man, I like, even on demo sessions, like playing a couple of things and like, I don't know, I feel like personally it helps. I can end up like seeing the song as the song better, as opposed to like getting in my head about the guitar part or the bass part or whatever it is I'm doing. So like moving from one point to the other just kind of like makes me maybe be more decisive or something. I don't know.
The pressure's on.
Yeah, maybe
do
so.
both.
Maybe I'm just performing like a mofo. So we were talking earlier while we were eating tacos.
Thank you for the tacos, by the way.
Shit.
They're amazing.
Well, the pleasure is all mine, literally.
And thank you for the beer.
Definitely, and there's more of those if we need to get one. So like when I first moved to town, you were playing this guitar and that amp, which we talked about earlier. You're like, I do a lot of sessions. I can't believe I didn't. I do a lot of acoustic sessions. I can't believe I didn't bring an acoustic.
I don't know what I was thinking.
Well, but it doesn't matter because like we talked about, this is the Tim that I first met. It was you. I remember you had a what my friends all call my jazz hat. You had the beret, forwards beret.
Oh, the golf cap.
Yeah, golf cap.
Yeah, the
whatever.
Andy cap.
I used to wear one all the time. I don't know what happened to any of those, or I would still be wearing them. But they don't look great on my watermelon head. But you were the only other person in Nashville I've ever seen wearing one of those. So.
I've realized recently they're also called go to hell hats at some places in the South. Did not know that until fairly recent.
What's the reference on that one?
Yeah.
I didn't know, but I had one artist I worked with had pulled one off my head at one point and told me to never wear it again. And I never understood why. And then fast forward 10 years later, I walked into First Watch or something and was getting breakfast, and someone said, "Nice go to hell hat." I'm like, "What?" And I was like, he's like, "Yeah, they're called go to hell hats in the South." And I'm from North Carolina, but I'd never heard that.
I've never heard that. I'm from Texas.
And I was like, well, okay, maybe that makes sense.
I mean, I've got some guesses, but like
I don't have a single guess. That doesn't make any sense. It's a Scottish golf apparel.
And
Yes.
and also like there are many immigrant Scots in North Carolina. That's where my last name is McCarty, and that's where my family immigrated to.
That same
So
that Galloway.
that whole thing, yeah, right. That whole thing makes sense.
I don't get it. Such a nice people, the Scots. Shout out to all the Scots. I have Scottish lineage. My aunt could tell
Clearly.
you, but I don't know. Yeah.
The red
McMiller, you know me.
McMiller.
Oh, man. I apologize for being so stupid. So, Tim,
Yes, sir.
what are you listening to? Are you listening to music actively these days? I know that I personally kind of bounce between like listening to music and listening to podcasts or just silence sometimes.
I do the same. I'm bouncing between any and all things. Podcasts, music, and silence.
So if you were to go out to your car when you leave here and be like, I want to listen to a record, is there have you been, I kind of tend to like go in shifts. There's a couple things I'm listening to for a week or two, and then I'm like, oh, what about this? And then I move to that. Or sometimes I'm in like that playlist I had on downstairs. I'm like, I just want to listen
random.
Just confuse myself.
That's where I am more often than not. It's just random. If I don't want to hear whatever it is, I'll just hit the next one.
Yeah.
My brother sends me music a lot. And it could
cool.
be a lot of like punk rock or very alternative stuff that I always love.
Sure.
So a lot of times I get a lot of musical inspiration from stuff he sends, to be honest. Like,
Do you get
just
into the
off
heavy stuff?
Anything. I like about anything. I may not always like it in the moment, but at some point I
Sure.
will. It
Sure.
just all depends on whatever
Have
mood
you
I'm in.
ever heard of a band called Car Bomb? I talk about them all the
I
time.
have not.
They're kind of a mathy metal band, but just some of my favorite, man. I don't know why.
Carball.
They just
I will check it out.
I talk about it on this podcast all the time.
Yeah.
I just talk about them all the time. They're playing in Birmingham in March, and
Oh, we were talking about that.
I'm going.
Yeah.
If
I was-
I'll go by
Dude,
myself.
I
take
just
Aaron.
showed Jessica them last night. She did not like it.
So
I
y'all are
was like,
going.
you play Dua Lipa for me all the time. I'm going to play you some of my shit.
Yeah,
man.
how about some Car Bomb?
Yeah.
I see your Dua Lipa, and I raised you Car Bomb. No, but it is a really cool band, and it's a screaming, very heavy, very mathy kind of band. It's not like I would say an equivalent of like those aspects would be like Meshuggah, but it's like not as old school as they sound, which is not even doesn't even. That seems like a weird thing to even say, much less.
You're getting closer than a lot of other things by saying Meshuggah, though.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
it's mathy in
It's
a certain,
it's like still really groovy.
Very
All the
rhythmic
parts
heavy,
are cool. But it's also very smart, and they're like doing other shit around the thing that makes you go.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So
I'll check him out for sure.
yeah. Anyway, do you go? again, the last 2 years, as you just said, were kind of a wash. But do you still go check out stuff live at all?
It's been a bit, and I wish
before the shutdown. Were you?
Occasionally.
I have to remind myself.
Like the last 2 shows I remember going to, outside of local shows, watching friends play, saw McCartney and Petty. Like those were the last 2 big shows I remember seeing.
Those are pretty.
I'm pretty jealous.
Pretty great.
You saw Petty before he died, man. That
would have been the last tour. Yeah.
Actually, I didn't make it to that one. It was the one before, which I could have made it to that one, but I was working. I had a friend offer me a ticket, and I couldn't go because I was.
I thought about buying tickets, and I would have loved to have gone.
Was it Bridgestone?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, man. So for me, I would love to see Okay, so I've seen Bonnie Raitt, but she's one of my favorite artists of all time. I saw her with James Taylor in Wrigley Field, and the sound was just ass. I mean, she still sounded amazing, but dude, somebody like Petty or
I saw that show, that same lineup in Bridgestone, and it sounded great.
Man, and I haven't seen a show at Bridgestone yet, but I would love to see one there. But I would love
pretty good considering.
Man, artists like that, I would love to see in a theater.
Sure.
You know? Like Chicago theater, I saw Chris Cornell 6 months before he died, and it was amazing.
The problem is that artists like Bonnie Raitt and James Taylor are not going to ever be able to play in any theaters unless...
No, she did Chicago theater when the Slipstream album came out, and that was 2013. But the tickets were $200 starting price,
I guess that makes sense. Just kind of price it to where that makes sense.
She was out with John Prine because that Tree of Forgiveness record had just come out.
I want to see more artists do things like residencies at the Beacon and Donald Fagen did one there for recently, I think, and other artists who I can't come up with a single one off the top of my head. But
City Winery, if they could find a good sound guy.
I've heard great and I've heard some really good and really bad sound.
I think we've gone to a couple of shows together, and there was one that was really great and one that was...
The last Oz Noise show that I went to there, you familiar with Oz?
I know who that is, yeah.
Was as good as I've ever heard him sound. It was him and Dave Weckl and Jimmy Haslip, and they were just murdering. And sonically, things were right. Like his guitar was enormous. All the low end was there. You could hear every nuance of Dave Weckl playing the drum kit.
Amazing.
The first show I ever saw there was Wayne Krantz, Tim LaFave,
which
Keith
we
Carlisle.
went to together.
The very first one?
Maybe not your first one, but my first one there. We went to that show.
Okay, because I've seen him there twice, and I've seen Wayne once at 3rd and Lindsley, too. Mm-hmm. But the very first time I went there, I know Ken was there because I sat with Ken. I don't think that you were at this one I'm talking about. Anthony Jackson was playing bass at the first Wayne Krantz show that I saw.
I was visiting, and we went together.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
I thought I went with Aaron.
Doesn't
matter.
Yeah,
either way, you couldn't hear Anthony Jackson's bass. You couldn't hear the kick drum. You couldn't hear the bottom end of any of the toms. It was...
I've never even been in there, so I don't know
surprising.
about it.
You haven't seen any shows in there? Mm-mm. Man, Eric Gales is coming soon. That's one that I want to see. That's going to be a fucking good show.
That guy is a freak of nature.
Yeah.
Sure.
He's like... He's got like gospel piano harmony chops that are ridiculous.
Yeah.
But on the guitar, upside down, backwards, right-handed guitar, left-handed. That still is like, it gets some of the coolest sounds that the guitar has ever made. But I can't think of something that sounds less comfortable than trying to do that. I mean, surely you guys have picked one up and tried to.
I've got a buddy that plays like that I went to school with.
I can't get it, man. It's so.
I mean, it's mind blowing. That somebody would put themselves through that.
If that's how you learn, you don't know any different.
You're right. Absolutely.
Mono Neon plays multiple instruments upside down, guitar and bass at an extremely high level.
And slaps on both of them, which is even crazier to me, because you think about the mechanics of slapping.
Yeah.
Typically you want to slap on the bass string, but if it's upside down, you're slapping the treble string and pulling the bass string.
It is a very backwards. And he just
watch.
is a murderer. You know, you've seen that guy, I'm sure. He just a murderer,
His
man.
videos are hilarious.
He is hilarious, too. He is both hilarious and talented beyond measure. I mean, just all the kinds of things that he thinks to even approach from a musical perspective, like him playing along with people talking and like all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't hear it. I can't hear it.
It's all just waveforms. Everything you say, everything you play, it's all just
Every airplane that flies over as
Yeah,
you're recording
exactly.
a podcast.
It's all just manipulating air.
Welcome to Nashville.
Welcome to BNA.
Anyway, the upside down guitar thing is just insane, and props to people who can do it, and like, again, it's not any different to them. They don't know any
This
different.
is enough trouble.
I'm about to
for
say,
me.
doing it like everybody else is not proven to be very easy to me. So
Yeah.
I told, I think, one of y'all earlier that I had a telehelp FaceTime call with podcast episode 3 guest Tony Campanovo yesterday actually, about some melodic minor shit, because he's like the melodic minor king. If you don't know, have you met my buddy Tony by chance?
I have not.
He's only lived here for a couple of years. He's a Line 6 product specialist, but he does a lot of like videos and stuff, and he is just
Such a good player.
He is just a monster, man. He, from both like a theory standpoint as well as a like physical ability to play. Like he can metal shred, he can bebop shred, he can country shred.
Awesome.
You can also play with pocket and like all the other things too, but like to be able to authentically shred in all those ways that's a lot of practicing, man. I don't practice that much. It's
crazy.
Do you practice or
yeah.
do you just like play?
I do, but I haven't recently. I've been in the middle of the moving thing, and I can
that's right.
definitely tell, and I need to put some time into it.
I've been back this week.
Definitely have to.
Really trying to practice, man. It's important, you know. If you find you're playing stale, chances are you're not practicing or like trying to
learn something new.
transcribing something, yeah, and not just something that you have to, something that you want to.
I think that's always important. Do what you love, and you'll find a way to excel at it. Hopefully.
Absolutely right.
Push out.
Volume knobs are very important.
Absolutely.
I use
You guys are
mine
rolling.
constantly, especially
And the tone knob.
so I put treble bleeds in all of my guitars except for my dad's 63 Strat. I haven't touched that. Just because in almost every other case, I find that anytime I roll the volume back, it
Takes the top end off.
but like to an unusable standpoint within like 10% for what the way I want my shit to perform, you know.
I might have some guitars that have that in, or have had, and I may have taken it out of some too. I used to dig in and mess with stuff a lot more than now. Now it's like, do I like it? Yeah, cool. If not, I'll change it, and then I forget what I ever do.
Totally, but I just think that what I'm always wanting to hear, from regardless of some of components, is I want to start off real bright and have the ability to control that as well as independently controlling the volume.
I get that.
And do you find, like, I like to track especially bright, but like also kind of often am thinking about what happens after I leave. So like sometimes, unless they ask for something different, I just kind of give a little wider of a spectrum so there's more to carve from. Do you have any thoughts on that approach? That's the garage door.
Oh, okay.
Lyndon tried to turn the light on and he hit the garage door button.
I was like, what in the heck? I try it. I mean, if it's like a record kind of thing, I try to get the tone as close to finished as I can.
Sure.
Don't like it too bright.
I certainly don't either.
Try to just get it as balanced and like a lot of kind of go ahead and roll the low end off from my end before tracking. Make sure everything's clear as it can be on my end.
Do you like to use? Do you track wet with like verbs and delays? Just depending on what the part is.
Like, yeah, there's no rules.
Sure,
everything,
sure.
and especially like doing a lot of different stuff, whatever it may be. I love experimenting too. So there's times I'll just plug straight into a preamp and then manipulate it all later with verbs and delays and try to make weird sounds. I don't know what I'm doing. I just sit there and play notes and hit buttons and hopefully something works.
Well, and I'm just curious as to like all the different approaches because, everybody is very much themselves typically at this level when it comes to like where you start, what you're looking for, and like how you like to do things, whatever your process is. And I certainly don't do the amount of sessions that you do or anywhere close to it. But in my experience, it's like very often the person running the session is trying to, trying to push me in a direction based on what they want to do afterwards, as far as like wanting me to play really dry and stuff, and if we need to make it dirty, we can make it dirty in post. It's like, yeah, you can, but there's a very specific kind of dirty, and so what do you mean? It's just
Well, it's always
been a weird experience for me, perhaps.
The producer and the engineer, I guess the job is the job is to make sure they're happy with what they're getting from you, and my job is to serve them.
Sure.
Some people don't want to record with any delays or reverbs at all. They want to be able to do it all at the end.
Do you find it hard to play like that? Or harder to play? Depending on, I guess, the part, but
the vibe, it would change the vibe, and sometimes it used to kind of bother me a little bit, but now it doesn't. Then on the other side,
very weird for me.
There are some producers that they want it all printed and just do everything, and when they get it, they don't want to have to do anything.
I like that approach too, because it's a lot easier, at least from like playing a part for a song, for my headspace, to like, this is what I hear getting to somebody's ear. Here are these things, pair it back. But like Lyndon and I don't know where he is, but Lyndon and I were talking, and because he does, produces some demo sessions for people on other sessions, and he's worked with an artist from Chicago and like got stuff that he produced on HBO shows and stuff. So he's it's an accomplished producer. So awesome. He likes to do. You're back now. We were talking about it's like when you print effects, like before or after, and I sent him a mix of something that I was doing like on this record that I'm working on for myself. It's definitely a guitar-y record, but like a vibey one. Anyway, I sent him all the stuff, and it's like a bunch of guitars, and they all have textures on them. And his comment was like, it was getting lost, and to a certain extent, for what he wanted to hear. And sometimes I kind of like that it's hard to hear exactly what you're hearing. Does that make sense?
Sometimes there's like no rules, and every situation is different. Because there's stuff like for me, like I love playing guitar straight into an amp. A lot of times I will, and then on the opposite end, there's a lot of stuff I do where it's just watered down, wet, and it sounds like an orchestra of guitars with a lot of verbs and delays, and just a big. Depends on what it is.
Yeah,
so you have to be able to kind of flip back and forth depending on what. Not what we want, although your record, yes, but depending on what the person that you're working for wants. Or a lot of times I'll ask questions and try to see if I don't know what they're going for, whether it be sonically or anything. I'll try to ask and kind of at least figure out where their headspace is, so I can make their job easier.
What kind of questions are you asking them to figure that out?
It all depends. And again, every situation is different.
It is so hard to try to just
and maybe being a little bit of an overthinker, I kind of want to understand what the big picture is, so I can know what to do.
What your place is.
Right.
Yeah.
And especially when I'm working at the house by myself and I don't have someone else there.
Oh yeah,
giving you feedback on the spot.
Like today, I was working for a guy from Switzerland, and like had a quick phone call and like, hey, what are you looking for with this or whatever. I can't even remember the specifics of the conversation. Like he sent everything was kind of mapped out. But it was like, what else are you adding to this? Just so I know how much space to take up.
Yeah, what's coming after you.
Yeah, that's always one that I kind of want to know. Because there's a lot of stuff I do where it's like, incomplete. It's not, the guitar's not the last thing. It's like, hey, are you adding keys? Or what are you thinking
Or they haven't done a background vocal session yet.
Right. And always, especially like, kind of like what space... Try to find what space I'm occupying in a track. Yeah. Like I don't want to take up too much to where they're boxed in, or sometimes I'll give them the option of some parts where it's like, if they don't add something on the top end of the frequency spectrum here, I'll add something, and then if they don't want to use it and they're going to put something else there, they can do that.
Right.
It just all depends.
Sure.
And
that's very thoughtful of you, and it shows your experience in the whole process.
And it's all figuring it out. Like, I listened to, there was some stuff today I was charting for a session later that I played on the demo 2 years ago, and I'm like, what was I thinking?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's all an evolution. Like, I don't know everything, and I will never know everything, and it's all just consistently just figuring it out, trial and error, ask questions.
Yeah.
If something doesn't work, you learn from it, move on.
How often do you listen to sessions that you were on?
If something comes out and I know about it, I'll at least kind of pull it up and listen, anytime I can.
But typically you do a session and just move on with your life.
A lot of times, yes.
Probably healthier.
Yes. a lot of times, but I used to always listen back, and I still will.
Game tape is important, right?
That's exactly it.
Review and adjust.
Exactly. And it's like there's things that I'm like, unfortunately, I can remember a lot of what I did. Like, oh, they must not like this. They didn't use it. What is it they didn't like? Why? Oh, that must not have worked with this picture. I'm an overthinker. So
no, but I know what you mean.
But it's very educational. It's not from it is just like, especially when I haven't worked with somebody a lot, I can learn how they're hearing things by listening to something finished.
Yeah.
And then when that opportunity comes back again, I can try to adjust.
You know what somebody's vision is.
Mm-hmm. And, sometimes I've noticed certain producers love certain acoustics. Like, I can remember this producer loves this specific acoustic from something they said, or they love how these parts kind of work together when I do something like this. Like, I'm always kind of cataloging each individual person to what they like.
That's both
or at least try
wise
to.
And genius.
The same way that a producer is probably calling you when they're familiar with you because they can hear you on the track that they're working on. Or a songwriter writes a song for a singer.
That Galloway grease, baby. Let's get some.
Yeah.
Like, there was a guy that had me do something, I guess, this past weekend, and I've worked with him before, and I went and tried to find the last song because I didn't remember anything. It was on another hard drive. I'm like, what did I do on this to kind of just figure out whatever the vibe was? Because, could do stuff from, even done some like kind of metal stuff for some people, or something that's really like just, there's all kinds of different stuff. So it's
You
like try to
should get
figure
the
out.
chops for it.
Some used to. Some I have to work them back up. But,
No, I don't think that's true.
but just it's all it's a service industry, and it's about serving the person that's hiring you. So any way you can think or find a way to kind of appease the person hiring you, the better off
That's
you'll
great,
be.
man.
And it's never about me. It's never about the guitar
it's a very
part. It's
selfless
about
way to look at it too.
well, it has. I think it has to be.
But at the same time, you're still consulting yourself, and because at the end of the day, whatever part you play, even regardless of the data that you're taking in to shape that part, it's still your part. So you're still serving both the song as well as the person. You're just knowing where to start.
It's like
kinda.
taking their ideas and putting my execution and personality into it.
Totally.
And it's
an actor reading a line.
yeah, because you can't just do it and just have no heart behind it, or it doesn't translate. You have to find a way to make yourself excited about their idea to serve their picture, I think.
And that's probably harder, doing, again, as many sessions as you do, which I certainly do not. But I'm just excited to create parts on the spot, regardless of who they're for or what, that's all. I've been excited about that since I was 11 years old or 10 years old, probably. I'm not doing it all day, every day for people, and you never know the quality of what you're working on until you show up a lot of the times. So that can get hard. I've heard horror stories. I don't think I've ever shown up to any single session and just like been in one of those scenarios where it's like, what do we do? What do we do with this?
It happens, and then you hope someone can guide everyone to the direction they want. And every now and then, sometimes we'll all go off the cliff together because we're trying to figure. And sometimes we're all trying to figure it out, and something great happens. Sometimes it's like, well, this. You leave feeling really bad about yourself.
Have you showed up?
It's pretty rare, but it happens.
To a session. Billy and Boo all have talked about this one session back in Texas where they showed up and whoever was coordinating asked the girl, like, do you have songs and charts? And she said yes. And they showed up, and what she had were lyric sheets, and she would just sang the melody to them for like 6 tunes or something. And they were just like completely out of time and amelodic, and they just had to like turn them into songs or
Sometimes.
like cancel the whole session.
Yeah, figure it out and make it happen.
I've heard the record. Based on what they're telling me, they're like miracle workers. I mean,
you just whatever you can in that moment, figure it out the best you can, and
I mean that's definitely like a worst case scenario kind of a story. I can't honestly imagine it being any worse, except for maybe doing it for free or something. You want to do this 6-song session? Well, probably I'll knock it out in like a weekend. Pays Jimmy John's.
One of the earliest sessions I ever did was for this hip hop artist who was on a label, and the label's like paying for the sessions and everything, and he hires me at this particular rate, and then he's like, all right, it's going to be like 4 songs. We get into the session, and we get the 4 songs done, which that was interesting enough because there's there's no charts, and the guy's just like giving me one listen through, and then he's like, all right, here we go. And it's like not easy music. It's kind of gospel mixed with hip hop. And then we get done with the 4, and we've been there for maybe, I don't know, like 6 hours or something. And then he was like, all right, cool. We just got 4 more. And I was like, well, we have a contract. They sent a contract and everything. And then he like agreed to this rate, and then we did 6 more hours, and then they just never paid the rest that we agreed to on the contract. And I'm like, I'm not a lawyer. I'm also poor. I'm not about to hire a lawyer.
Yeah, they should have done you better than that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm sure that you typically don't deal with those kinds of things, but I'm sure that we've all dealt with something similar to that sort of situation.
Say, maybe somewhere in the rear view he had a worst case scenario situation. I haven't actually had anything bad like that.
Really?
A lot of the sessions I know that I do are for people that I know that like my playing, and so I just it's not a thing where like an engineer's. Most of my sessions have not been like just somebody knows me and they call me for a session just because that's who's available. I don't get a lot of those last minute scenarios. I'm not on that list or whatever. At least not here. And I feel like that's where you're going to run into that. It's like, hey, this chick called, got 4 songs. I don't know her. I have no idea what this is about. Pays this. Are you in? There was a lot of that back in Dallas.
I did a lot of that in Chicago when I first. It's kind of how I started producing. Was there was the artist that I worked for the most that I started producing for, but then other people that were fans of him found out that I produced for him, so they started hitting me up, but I wanted more clients, so I was charging a very cheap rate. And so then it would be like, like passing out a mixtape in the parking lot quality demos, and they're like, man, I think you really fuck with this. And then it's just, you listen to it and you're like, oh shit. All right, here we go. But those were also cool because, like, I mean, you get to cut your teeth on some stuff. It has its value,
Absolutely.
And then you learn when to say no. You learn how to say no in a like sort of making them not feel like bad about it, sort of way,
Yeah, it's all a process.
Yeah, it's part
Life
of the process.
is curation of events, bro. That's what it is.
It is. It's all a process.
And the ones who are good at it, curate wisely.
But we all just love to play.
Yeah, man.
Totally.
For sure.
I think I told you we would do like a 4 or 5 minute jam. I feel like it was probably like 12 to 15 minutes.
I think I started tracking like you guys just kind of went ahead, just kind of went for it, and I started tracking some. You'll probably have to fade it in, but I want to say it was like 8 minutes or something.
The buzz was very strong at that point.
Well, and by they, I'm definitely mean me. Don't call it gear and
shots.
Well, we don't call it gear and juice.
So, is it gear and beer, or beer and gear?
Gear and beer.
Okay, sorry for my ignorance, but
It's okay.
definitely was putting the beer before the gear.
I named it gear and beer, so you want to talk about ignorance? Let's start there.
That was the appropriate interval for that.
I've never asked anyone to do this, but when you first sat down, you just started like Tom Bukovac, God's Radio playing earlier, and can I put you on the spot and just like play something?
I don't know what to play. Any ideas?
That's perfect.
I have no idea what to do. Yeah, I'm the worst at that.
Play the Beach Boys tune or something.
I've been messing with that tune. It's like I kind of want to figure something out with it.
Sound pretty figured out to me. That sounds so good, man.
I just like the sound of the guitar in that.
It's so clear. Your playing is so like intentional. I love that, man. Sounds so good.
Very kind.
All of my favorite players have that intentional thing to their play.
I need to utilize this tuner.
Man, that guitar sounds so major.
You want to play it?
Yeah, I don't know that I can, but I want to.
I'm pretty sure you can.
I don't know. I'm drinking space juice or whatever.
I've been doing the same thing.
Space cabbage or whatever.
Yeah, space cabbage, bro.
Is it space cabbage?
Space lettuce.
Space lettuce, yeah. Been drinking jazz cabbage, bro.
I was like,
Jazz
that's a pretty great name. Space cabbage.
Hey, I like that. Man, I love your right hand technique. You have the whole like bent thumb thing going on. What angle is your pick at? Are you changing the angle of it with your like the joint of your thumb?
Can't say I've really thought about it.
Yeah. See, it's straight right there.
Yeah, the pick's straight. They're pretty perpendicular.
But like, I think when you weren't thinking about it, you had it like that, and it was
possible.
like.
And I'm always changing the angle of the pick, and depending on the pick.
Yeah.
like,
Did you think about that at one point when you were kind of learning?
I've had to relearn a
Yeah.
lot. Like, especially playing more acoustic.
Mm-hmm.
And once I started recording more acoustic, and then really when I got a setup to record, then I started paying a lot more attention to the tonal aspects of how the pick hits, whether it hits at an angle or whether it hits straight, whether you're using the side of the pick, whether you're using a thin pick or a thick pick.
Oh, dude, this opens up a lot of questions I have for you.
I remember spending I'm a night out, and I will stay up all night and just do the geekiest stuff just to learn. But I remember one night I spent the entire night just going through different picks and what they sound like at different angles and how.
Oh, dude,
just
like
all
what
kinds of
materials
stuff like
they're made
that.
from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't have them with me now, but I think there's probably 30 different picks,
Dude,
all
I got
different
a big
materials
old bag
and,
of them. Yeah.
and thicknesses, and some jazz picks.
I bet you have an acoustic bag and an electric bag.
I've got an acoustic bag.
split up.
Electric stuff, I carry thin and thick ones, and usually just like Dunlop or the Planet Waves picks I'm always happy with. And
Yeah.
sometimes a Jazz 3 if it's more rockin' stuff, because I'd use those
Can't
forever.
get into the Jazz 3s, man. I know you use them, Rob.
Yeah, I still use it.
When-
yeah.
You use
I
the
was-
Black Ice and the Jazz 3.
The Black Ice, actually, I have a couple of those. They're okay. The Jazz 3s I used to use a lot, especially when I was in like the Dream Theater phase and all that.
And I
okay.
got this is like I got a 1.5 and a 1.15.
Yeah,
that I like.
those are a little different than the ones that I used to use.
Is that where your right hand chops comes from? Is the Dream Theater
At
stuff?
one point, and I'll still talking about practicing, I'll try to
Yeah.
get that stuff out and work through it.
I can hear it.
And
I mean, you
it's
got some serious definition with your right hand.
Used to be able to do a lot better than now. Like every now and then I'll sit down with it and kind of relearn it, and it's not there, and I'll get to where I okay, I can do it decent. Then
Yeah.
I
All
move it
right.
along.
Is all that stuff pretty much just straight up alternate picking?
Some of it is, and
Oh, sorry.
And without thinking, when growing up, I would kind of somewhat sweep between notes and not. So I actually had to really work to be able to alternate pick. And I'm not great at it. Like if I'm not thinking, again, I'm thinking about it, so it's a lot harder. Or something like that.
Yeah.
And I could do it pretty well, I guess, or decent, I guess, but where I'm not straight alternating, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I try not to think about it, and it works
I believe
way
it's
better.
called economy picking.
It's working great
Yeah.
for you, obviously, but like,
But
It
if I'm,
depends on what the line calls for.
Yeah.
If you're playing live, it makes less of a difference. It's more about however that moment feels and however you got to get it out.
yeah, because Rob, you went through like some Frank Gambale stuff, right? Like that was how you got your
I used
right
to
hand
have
chops
a
together.
lot of chops, and I was trying to play a part the other day on some extremely nerdy guitar thing I was doing, and I just like did not have
there's
the right hand for it anymore.
yeah,
It made me very mad, as a matter of fact.
That was what I saw
And
earlier. That
and I
straight
started
alternate.
practicing this week.
Man, so much definition out of the alternate stuff.
Complete
gotta get
clarity.
back-
You can hear every note end and beginning.
and if that's there, like I think a lot of it's from playing acoustic, which is extremely unforgiving, or playing really clean. Like I used to even when I wasn't playing acoustic professionally, I guess if you can say that.
You can.
I would practice.
I
would practice on acoustic just to get the extra resistance on both hands and to force the definition with no. That way, there's, it's just unforgiving, and it.
100%.
You are listening to the Gear and Beer Podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by Bobby Jam's Kitchen. Want to take your home cooking to the next level? Need new recipe ideas or meal inspiration? Like, follow, and subscribe to Bobby Jam's Kitchen on YouTube and Instagram at Bobby Jam's Kitchen. Cook your food and eat it.
Ends pretty
Yeah.
good there.
So around here, they're especially bad. But I have a whole bag full in my gig bag, and they're just as bad. every now.
I started throwing them away once on
I
acoustic.
follow them on carpet.
On acoustic, I love like the blue chips, and I've had the same handful of picks for years, and they haven't worn.
The blue chips have so much high end on the front end, though.
They do, and can be
When harnessed
useful
properly.
at times, and there's times it's too much, and it's like, okay, I need to grab a 2.0 Planet Waves pick or something different to get that doesn't have the same high end.
Do you like a blue chip at all on an electric? Does it make a difference to you?
It can be a little bright, but I use like regular, like pure nickels on some guitars, which take some of the top end. Like my old, like
What strings are these? If you don't mind me asking, I meant to ask you earlier and I just forgot, and so instead of forgetting,
usually
again.
like D'Addario's on most stuff.
Those look like D'Addarios because they have the
colored-
coloration. Yeah,
I
Oh
think
yeah, EXL
these-
110.
These are the NYs.
Oh, the NYXL 110s.
they're great, man.
I
just
like
burned
them
through them too
on
quick.
some. Unfortunately, like I don't really kill strings.
I'm not
I do.
yeah, he does.
Like,
I don't kill strings
My
either.
sweat pH just fucking
Like I
murders
pulled a
them.
guitar out of the case the other day. Somebody came over and like, do you have anything with P90s? And I have like an SG Junior from like the '60s. I had. He's like, what else? And I was like, I've got a Les Paul. And the last time I pulled it out was 2017. And like there was
the strings were still good.
and the strings were still fine. And I like literally I
Very
can
jealous.
a lot of guitars I can change them once a year. As soon as they start
Easier
wearing,
doing a case than out in the room too, though.
that's true.
Less
But
oxidation.
exactly. But like I don't
Oxidization.
even stuff that I keep on a guitar stand outside. Like I just don't kill them very often. Once they start wearing the frets, I'll change them. And you can tell. But as far as just the liveliness of them, like these are. Gosh, I bet these are 6 months old.
Oh
Probably.
my god, dude.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
But
I have low
they're
pH in my skin. I didn't used to. I had like a huge change at some point. I used to be like him and Boo Massey on a Cowboys gig, 3 45-minute sets. He would change his strings at the beginning of the night and then between the second and the third set.
I would do the same if I had multiple sets.
I can play 5 4-hour gigs on a set of strings.
You're kidding
and
me.
then they start to get dead.
I've had friends like look at a guitar and like literally do this and hand it back, and I'm like, where'd the top end go? It's gone. But I guess I've been fortunate with that. As crazy as it is, I did realize I was killing strings more. And it's going to sound really stupid and overly neurotic, but
Perfect.
when I was eating burgers and fries all the time and eating really bad, like it absolutely made a difference on how I killed strings.
I bet.
Again,
It changes the
totally
whole composition
crazy.
of your body and the way it's functioning.
I've tried
make a
everything.
difference.
I've tried changing my diet and it just will never.
Just be better.
Right. Dude,
And I'm really neurotic about washing my hands every time before I play.
I
like,
wash
before
my
I walk
hands
up
all
here.
the time. I wipe my strings down. I'll like take a cloth to the gig and they turn black after like 2 gigs.
Wow.
And it'll even like rust the frets if I don't wipe down the frets after like if I get sweaty on an outside gig or something.
See, I can't wash my hands very often because I'll get eczema breakouts and my knuckles will start bleeding. So I use a lot of hand sanitizer. It doesn't seem to dry me out as bad, but like. If on a gig, I'm not touching anything because I don't want to have to wash my hands because if I do, the strings will just shred me, man.
Have you seen like the Working Hands, a little green bottle that's like a moisturizer kind of, especially for the winter because my hands will get dry.
I have a lotion that I really like.
Oh gosh, like right around there, like. And
I get it on my hybrid picking finger real bad on the cuticles on the side. Turns into a little string hook. It's great.
Yeah, I had to super glue one the other day because it got dried and cracked, and I didn't use that stuff. And it's like, well, super glue it, file it down, just so I could be able to. But
I have a really sharp pocket knife that, in a worst case scenario, I can usually like whittle it off. That has also bit me the wrong way.
It's literally making me cringe right now.
Yeah, it's not a good idea. Do not recommend.
That sounds terrible. Hey, do you have nails? Do you
fake nails? No.
Not fake, or do you grow them out or
anything?
anything?
Do you keep a length of nail?
Okay.
No, I know if I cut them too short, they hurt like hell. But I keep them about there.
Okay, yeah.
I used to put nail hardener on them.
Okay.
And
Kevin Key does that. I can't do that shit, man.
Yeah, Kevin does that. But you're just using the tips of your fingers, like the pad or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know some people use fake nails. I just use the fleshy part.
Tony Pierce.
And if I want to get,
he cuts his fingernails back to his knuckles. He's got no finger. It's ridiculous.
I don't see how I remember, and this was before I moved here. And I don't think I've done it since. I cut them too short when I was playing a house gig, and it's like, it's the worst.
And when you have to play, it really hurts.
It really, really, really
especially
hurts.
if you hybrid or chicken pick a lot.
Them phalanges are sensitive things.
Yeah.
People look at me crazy because I wear gloves in scenarios where a lot of people don't wear gloves. And I'm like, hey, look, bro, you cut your hands enough times and you're going to start wearing gloves. That's just all there is to it. Bro or sis.
I know some people would get manicures.
Guys, gals,
just
non-binary pals. Sorry. I watched too many Jay Kenji alt videos. Please continue. Podcast number 27, guest.
Number 27. I'm honored to be the 27th person on your list to call for a podcast.
Well, in my defense, I am not very smart.
I am not either, and I'm
I don't know,
very
I don't know how
bad.
that's in my defense, but
I'm
we just
very
wanted to
bad
get good
podcasts.
get good at it first.
You did ask me about it a while back,
I did, and then
I'm really bad at talking in general. So,
dude, I had one
helps,
of the
but-
busiest end of years, especially considering all the extenuating circumstances of existence these days.
there's a
I
lot.
was never here, man. I wouldn't have been able to release podcasts through the end of the year.
I don't
if
think we did
didn't-
any in December, did we?
One, if we hadn't had stacked them. No, we did two. We did Ford and Lance. But we at one point
right.
we were backlogged like 6 weeks, just because I was afraid of something like that happening, and then I burned through them all. So now, like yours will be out in,
Number 27.
yeah, in like 4 days,
Oh, wow.
or it'll be out in a week.
All
It'll
right.
be out next Monday.
All right.
So get ready, America.
Happy January. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. So, I did you say that you brought another couple of guitars?
I did.
You said a telly, right?
I do have a telly with me.
London.
Switch mount?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you mind grabbing that for him?
Absolutely. Is it in the front of the back of that double case?
I have no idea. You can grab it. You can grab whichever one you
What
like.
else did you bring?
My Strat is there. If you grab the Strat, you can grab the whammy bar in the bag as well, please. I can tell you about either one or whatever you want to know. Or
I
you
just
ask
wanna-
me questions, I'll answer the best I can.
I just want to hear the other two instruments that you thought enough of to bring to a dorky podcast.
Telly.
Yes, sir.
It's like a custom shop. The
52?
52. I borrowed it for a video because it was already beat up. And I was like, if something happens to it, they'll never know. I was like,
That
I don't
thing
want
is real beautiful.
And I was like, wait, I really like this guitar. And it's tuned, how's it? Drop D, it seems like. Yeah, Telly, there you go. There you go. Volume knob. If I grab two guitars, two electrics, it's probably going to be these two.
I can
of the
immediately hear one.
That thing is beautiful, man.
Is that all your wear, or was that a road worn?
It's a relic, which
Okay.
I borrowed it because it was already relicked.
Well, I know that the custom shop also made those closet classics or whatever, so I
Yeah.
just wondered how long you'd had it.
I've had it since 2007 or 8.
It's kind of got a tapered V profile, like down by the headstock.
Yeah,
it feels
it does
like
a little
V,
bit.
and then it gets a little
I
more
want
C.
I want a
Yeah.
butterscotch blackguard. So is that what this is considered as a butterscotch? Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like it.
I think that's the color.
I do too, but sometimes they call it blonde, and I also have color deficiency. So
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's
you
the thing.
you particularly sound great on that guitar.
yeah, those hands are special.
Ah, very kind of you.
Yeah,
yeah,
you're
there's
not
the-
kind of me. I'm not the one playing that beautifulness.
But there it
Sounds
is.
so good, dude.
I'm absolutely looping that for one of the in-rooms.
But you can do big.
Yeah, man.
There you go.
I love behind the nut bends. Those are my favorite. Every now and then, I'll grab for one on an SG or something and be like, oh, man.
You don't have much room to work with on that.
Especially not on my SG.
This one's gonna get close to needing some frets.
Every guitar over here needs a fret job. And I'm not even kidding. Literally every guitar I own isn't. It's just, I don't know how. Probably because I play them, I try to keep them all in my hands as often as possible.
Yeah.
That they kind of wear evenly, so it's like, oh, they're all fine. Oh, wait, now they're all fine.
I think almost everything I've got's had at least one fret job. My Strat knows had two. At least. I think that this 335's Had two.
My American Standard, my first telly I ever owned, has definitely had two. For a long time, that was like the only guitar I played for like 6 years.
There you go.
Everything that everyone is hearing is his guitar, his amp, a 57, and a fathead ribbon, mostly 57 in this mix. And I'm not putting any post.
Although I just boosted the fat head a little bit, and it makes that man,
low end.
just like a dB.
Yeah, I'm not putting any plugs or anything on this.
I love just cranking a Princeton up and get the grit out of it.
Can we hear the neck pickup?
Yes.
Have either of you ever played a telly neck pickup where the tone's been disconnected? 'Cause that's the way I have my American Standard, and it rules.
Really?
Yes.
What does it do?
Probably
Makes it brighter and ballsier.
brighter because you don't have the resistance. And
Yeah, the resistance is gone because it's not connected at all. It's just like straight to the switch. It's awesome.
I mean, that makes sense.
I was having
because
trouble with Muddy.
I would never roll the tone off on a neck pickup on a telly.
The only time I've ever done that is on that Nash with the humbucker in the neck when I'm not trying to like play a jazz thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe a jazz thing.
I would never do that with a telly regular neck. I'm not Julian Lage, and everyone knows it. Sounds like that are a lot more usable in a studio scenario than they are live, in my opinion. The darker
the neck.
Just a darker sounds. To my ear, you have to really shape darker sounds in a live scenario in order to find your spot in the mix. At least to my ear.
I like darker sounds on the bridge pickup if you want to be more busy but not intrusive. Like if you want to play a lot of bullshit, put it on the bridge pickup and turn the tone down a little bit. And
that also makes it punchier, at least on my guitars, because
there's a
I
lot
have
of
really bright pickups.
Seems like I might have heard this on a podcast, but it's like there can be magic between something bright and something dark put together.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because then things have their own space to sit in.
And I do use the bridge pickup and roll the tone back a lot.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that's but it's still enough to
I'm about to say it's a lot until it's just enough.
No, I meant when he had it all the way open. That's a lot of high end.
That wide open sound that's funk guitar all day, because you're cutting so much of that bottom off. Exactly. My first thought was Roller Coaster of Love. Did you know that guitar was wide open right into a console?
Volume back, volume up.
What a badass guitar part. It's so simple, but it's badass, man. It's badass.
It really is.
I think another simple but badass guitar part, that Vegas gig I was telling you, we were playing Separate Ways by Journey.
I thought you were about to say Mr. Big Stuff.
No, that's a great song.
That guitar part.
Will you grab that Strat?
Yeah,
will you
absolutely.
grab that whammy bar as well? I'll show you that too, just while we're
here. Hand me that telly.
Hey, will you grab me a beer and a taco? and nap.
Thank you, Landon.
Hey, was my dog okay when you were down there?
He's there. Yeah, he was fine.
Nothing was destroyed. He hadn't thrown up or anything
No.
crazy.
He was standing around looking cute.
He is great at that.
You said front pocket.
Whatever the only pocket is on
Yeah,
that guy.
Fair enough.
There should be a whammy bar in there.
Oh, wow.
I bought this when I was in high school. I've had this since. It's been all over.
Oh shit!
Whatever. I just got this Vega
That
Trem.
flame top.
The Vega Trem on there, which has been a lot of fun. Which I need to do a video for them.
That's a new installment, or
It is, and I really, really like this trim.
is it like a comparable alloy, or is it some like crazy sustainy kind of a job?
To me, it's pretty neutral sounding, from
Okay.
what I can tell.
This is not the Stratocaster I was expecting to see after the last two guitars.
I've got another one, but this is with the humbucker and all of that. It's
Yeah,
kind of a
Badass. That's a beefy bridge.
yeah. There's the bridge.
Very punchy.
Cool
Oh
tap.
yeah. That's biting. That sounds great.
But yeah, I
Those
bought
are
that.
some hot pickups too, man. Things
They're like
almost hotter than the Gibson.
Fralin Vintage Hots, and then I can't remember. I think that's just can't remember what the bridge is, but it's fun little
Sounds awesome.
Strat.
That neck is extremely biting. Look in a good way. It's got those upper mids that aggressive sound. Hey. Dwee-wee-oo. Love it.
and there's the
Hey.
but I really like this trim. Should check it out.
That's
Tell me the name one more time.
Vega.
Vega Trem.
Okay.
The only one of my buddies that I know that actively uses tremolo bars is Letary. He's the only dude that I'd ever see use one. And he's got like Jeff Beck game. He doesn't use it as annoyingly, but
I love using it. I do not have Jeff Beck game, but I love using it.
Mark's got that Jeff Beck game. I don't either.
Remember what I'm doing? What am I doing?
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
That is
It's almost a King Crimson-y.
yeah, it's a great sounding guitar for sure.
Coil tap.
The tap actually sounds really nice on that.
I would say it's the first time I've ever heard both sound good. Usually the non-tap is very muddy.
It's like a 500K pot for the bridge, 250 for the other, so you kind of get the best of both worlds.
Totally. So is it then is it the same control setup, volume, tone.
Volume, tone. So
So the second volume is the bridge volume.
yeah, that's so.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I think the tone works for both. Yeah. But.
So it's kind of like an active blend.
Ooh, I like the blend with the tab.
blend
Yeah,
it.
that's cool. It's really clear.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the other one I brought with me. And there's nothing stock about this guitar other than that
Input jack
plate and the neck jack plate. Everything else has been changed.
What about the wood?
the wood is still the
So
same?
we got 2 plates and 2 pieces of wood.
And that's it. Everything else has been changed.
You only have 2 springs on the back?
Apparently so.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, Zach Ricard put this in there for me. And, yeah, it's pretty recent.
I wonder if the 2 springs is a function of that Vega Trem system. It's just kind of what they...
Reading, they recommended...
Does it feel really loose?
It feels really loose, but here, check it out.
Gives you a lot of control.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you've been light on that. Yeah.
Check it out
I'll try.
while I finish my beer.
It's also heavier than I thought it might be. Oh, yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah, I use it a lot more than...
That's like you said.
You can say it's pretty touchy.
I could not play that in tune for at least 10 minutes. Is that right?
Don't worry, we'll cut this out.
No, don't.
Is that right? Is that right? Hang on.
Didn't you see the sign? Now do it in all majors.
Is that right? On a dark desert highway, cool wind in my hair, warm smell of Carlitos rising up through the air. Is that right?
Was it Monty Montgomery did like Stairway to Freebird?
Of course he did. If
think-
anyone did, it was him.
I think he's a Texas guy too, isn't he?
Yeah, sure is. The acoustic shred machine.
Yeah.
I dropped my pick, but it doesn't really make a difference at this point.
Is that tapped?
That guitar doesn't have the same like just natural wood resonance the other two have, but it does its thing.
It's a cool thing, man.
It's like every time I drive my girlfriend's car and I tap on the brakes, and everybody's like, that's what playing your guitar is like.
Gear and beer.
All right, so I'm going to ask you the fanfare questions. These were all submitted by listeners.
And I was not given these in advance. So
No.
They're all named Lyndon.
Yeah. They are... they have not been... We have not fed Tim any answers. Know that these answers will be truthful and of his own volition. My first question...
Probably to a fault.
...is Metallica or Megadeth?
Metallica, I have to say.
Okay. Care to elaborate?
No.
Okay. That's fine.
I mean, the Black Album was like something I grew up on and knew fairly in depth.
My follow-up question...
And Injustice for All.
I'm right now changing to... Have you spent much time listening to Megadeth?
No, I haven't.
Because
so that's the other part of
that. A lot
that.
of people have not.
I have not. So that's probably a big part of why I answered the way I did.
You opened the floodgates earlier when you said, please send me anything you're listening to that you think is cool.
I will check out some Megadeth.
Because they're, especially if I know that you're into like the Petrucci and like the technical kind of metal-y fusion-y thing.
I have been.
Dave Mustaine's guitar playing, another unsung hero. Man.
It's really killer, man.
I need to dive in.
It's extremely capable guitar playing. It's really, the solos that he writes are great. He's got great facility on the instrument. His are usually a lot more classical sounding,
but also not devoid of soul. I wouldn't say.
Oh no, not at all.
Yeah.
Not. It's still very lyrical playing, and
I love that.
I'm not trying to take anything away from Metallica.
No, I understand.
I'm a huge Metallica fan too. A lot of times, people pit those bands, or at least back in the day, they used to pit those bands against each other. It's like, well, Dave Mustaine used to be in Metallica, so if you like him, you can't like Megadeth. You're not my friend anymore.
I don't care about that stuff.
So I don't either, but I find that most often people just haven't listened to much Megadeth.
I have not.
They know like Symphony of Destruction.
I can't even say I know that, to be honest.
Well, you've got some listening cut out for you,
I
sir.
do. That'll help me get back to the house.
Yeah.
without a speeding ticket, hopefully.
So, in line with that last question, you have to pick one, and that's jazz or metal.
That's tough, because I can't say I've dove in heavy to either one.
None of that matters.
When I used to go to the gym, metal would be good. If I'm just chilling, jazz is probably better. So it depends on the mood. Those are such opposites.
They are.
And I do listen to both, but I can't choose one.
Would you say that nothing else matters?
I would say that... I'll tell you what. I was going to quote a song title by Dying Fetus, but it is so abrasive.
I'm sure it is less appropriate than the name of the band.
It is insanely less appropriate, which is why I have not...
You remember that so you can tell me after this, because I want to hear it.
Easily. Just pick a song title on any of their records.
Jazz.
I like that choice, too. The improvisational nature of the music alone, I think, makes me pick it.
All right.
What's going on with that? I think I could probably answer this question for you, but live or session?
That's still a tough question. There's elements of both. If I have to pick one, I'm enjoying doing the session thing now. So I will continue to do that as long as I am allowed.
I think that you'll be as loud as long as you choose to do so. Single coil or humbucker? And these are not like they don't make sense. You just have to pick one.
I grew up with single coils much more. It took me a while to love humbuckers, to be honest. My 335 helped with that.
I bet. I heard why.
However, I'll say humbuckers because of that guitar. There's a curveball.
Oh, I like it.
I can dial it back and still do the twangy thing.
Episode 27 with all of the hot takes, Mr. Tim Galloway. So we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. One aspect of this, but volume pedal or knob, and if both, do you have where would you put a pedal in your board?
So Mr. Justin Butler, whose name came up over
I have not ever heard of that person.
So he did my pedal board, and I had him do some work on it earlier.
Oh, Justin
this
Butler.
Week, or
Oh, you
last
mean the
week.
pasta maker?
Oh, episode 4 guest.
Episode 4 guest.
Stregonona, as he's known.
He had my volume pedal before the drives,
No.
and I was like, I tried it for a couple of years because he talked me into it, and I'm like, okay, the volume pedal has to go after the drives. I use the volume knob enough, even when playing. I can do one thing with it, and then having it after the drives completely different.
Is
So
that
now
a
I have the
Justin
best
thing?
of both before the drives.
Oh, he likes it before the drives.
Yeah.
That's where I run mine because I use it the same way I use my volume knob, which doesn't
But-
make any sense. It's redundant, but
It does its own thing. I hated it that way.
I think
live.
its reaction is different than a
It's
guitar volume knob.
completely.
Yeah.
It is different.
it doesn't react. It reacts about the same as the way I have my guitar electronics set up with the treble bleed.
With the treble bleed, though. Yeah, right. But you don't have treble bleeds in anything.
Yeah, he
right?
doesn't.
Yeah.
But for
Definitely
me,
not
it's
in
redundant.
these. I mean, it may be in this, but I doubt it.
No, it's definitely.
Doesn't sound like it.
Nope. I think my guitar guy at one point snuck it in a couple, and I was like, and it may still be in some, but a couple I remember catching him like next time I see it, he's
I
gonna
gotta
have to
change
check
it
this
out.
out.
I gotta change it out. The only one I have.
Yeah,
Mistake.
because the using the volume is still using it as a tone knob as well. It's just another tool.
That's fair.
Yeah,
It is just another tool at the end of the day.
anything
At the
yeah.
end of the day. Do you use compression? Do you have compression on your board or anything?
I do.
What, if you don't mind, what compressor are you currently using?
At the moment,
Or do you have multiple? In your studio rig, do you have rack stuff and pedal stuff, or you just got a pedal?
in the studio at the house, I've got a distressor and a tube tack, and a lot of times I'll lean on those harder than the pedals,
Yeah, man.
depending on what it is.
That's not the worst.
I've got an MXR Dynacomp on there right now. I'm always like, if there's one pedal I'm switching out or I have a love-hate with, it's compressor.
Man, I found the Dynacomp to be so heavy-handed.
It can be. Depends on which one.
Like the older ones.
The old one is noisy, but I love the vibe of it. It does a mid-range thing that I love sometimes. Sometimes I don't. They reissue hand-wired ones, customs that they used to make. I don't know if they still make them. I like it. That has the old chip in it. I also have what else do I have that I like? The CS2s are cool for certain things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always that's one that I just swap out all the time because I never love
That's
it
the
very
boss pedal,
long.
right?
What's the trendy one? The Cali 76?
Yeah,
that
I know
the-
some people that love those.
It depends on which iteration, because a lot of people swear by the big body, but then I've heard
It's
the
different.
slide rig, the compact. That
small
sounds
one.
great.
Some love that.
And they've got the regular the origin or the original or whatever,
Yeah.
but just the small box.
Have I shown you the Fairfield Accountant?
Uh-huh.
Have you seen that?
It's a pretty
Are you
squishy
familiar
sounding
with?
one, right?
It is. Like in the most minimal setting, it is still noticeable.
It reminds me
very
of like the
colorful.
Greer fish press.
Yeah.
I've got an Analog Man bicomp. I will use that sometimes. And again, it's just I don't use it a lot. I don't use compression a lot. Like I'll crank an amp up and get the tube compression more than anything, unless it's an actual effect.
Yeah, right. You're trying to get that 80s, 90s clean,
Yeah.
squashy thing.
Yeah, and
And you got the Dynacomp and the CS2 for that. So.
yeah, they all. Yeah, so compression's kind of. I've been messing with it for years and never found one that I'm like, that's my compressor.
Can I ask 2 side questions?
Absolutely.
Okay. One, when you're tracking at home, what microphone is your go-to for an acoustic? And the second question is the same thing, but for electric guitars on an amp.
I've got an old 414 that I use a lot on acoustics, and I love it.
Oh wow.
Um,
Okay.
like the old, not the brass capsule one, but the EB, like the first version of the nylon capsule is the one I've got, and I use that most of the time, and sometimes I use a 57 too.
On an acoustic.
Yeah,
and
or
like
blend
in combination,
and
in
sometimes
conjunction?
just a 57.
Really?
I don't
Where do you
tell,
put
I
the
don't
57?
tell people
Well, I mean,
because people that say they hate 57s on acoustic, I'll send them a 57 on acoustic and not tell them, just to trick them, and it depends on the vibe of the song.
I mean, is that like if the acoustic is with? Could you do a 57 on an acoustic by itself if that's the only acoustic track you're sending somebody?
I have. If it's more like a raw, gritty, because the mid-range focus is different than what.
Where do you position that 57 if you do that?
Depends on the guitar.
Really?
A lot of times, like where the body meets, seems to be a good spot. Sometimes angled down. My 28, which has a lot more low end. Sometimes the 6th fret pointed in. Sometimes just being above. It all depends on the part.
That is not the answer I expected from you.
I mean, there are a lot of other ones I really like, but that's what I have. At the moment.
Unexpected answer is what I have come to expect from Tim Galloway.
That's really cool, though, man. I'm going to have to mess with that because I've done it a couple times at home. Just been like, wow, this sounds spectacularly bad.
It always depends. Like, sometimes it is spectacularly bad. Sometimes it's really, really cool. And sometimes if it's like multiple parts, sometimes having one doing that, they kind of can work together in a cool way.
Yeah.
On electric, I've got one of the old Unidyne 57s.
Okay.
And it's really cool. Or a regular 57. Sometimes in conjunction with a 121 Royer, depending on the stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I've got the poor man's
clean.
Royer. It's not even close to the same thing, but like, ribbon mic and a 57.
It does the thing. Especially like clean stuff, and when it's by itself, I like it. A 421 and a 57 is cool, which for some of the more like
I love 421.
big rock stuff I was doing earlier, it was those two in combination. Like I went through a TG2 and summed them together and blended them.
Yeah. So you have
kind
a
of fit
Chandler.
Mm-hmm.
Those are great, man. I find 421s to be kind of mid-rangey.
They sound super like
fizzy,
full range.
They have
clear to me.
That's why, and it'd be hard for me to use it by itself, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree.
But in combination, the 57 kind of picked up what that didn't, and then blended them together. And then again, this track was a very not Nashville, not country kind of thing, a very rock power kind of thing, and it just kind of helped it pop.
It did that really
It got a little on the bright, and even, but it was kind of what was called for.
Yeah.
And they were happy, so.
All right, cool. Thanks.
I'm always messing with stuff. Even a 414 is great on electrics, too.
Okay.
For certain things.
Yeah, that's pretty common. People use that on electric.
But 57, you'll never go wrong with just a 57.
Right. That's the thing is like, I mean, even with this, like, you were just like, yeah, lean on the 57 more. Like,
you can tell with the ribbon. Sometimes you get that low mid thing, and sometimes it could be a little too much.
Like it's kind of muddy,
like this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, certain things it's great, and certain things it could be a little much. But I think between a 57 and a 414, those two mics you can make an entire record with those two mics.
Oh yeah, man.
I'm not an engineer, but that's my extremely ignorant opinion.
I don't think that you could call that opinion extremely anything other than authentic to your experience.
And I can give you a totally different answer next week.
Right. That's the beauty of this whole thing.
Anytime anyone asks me about anything, whether it be advice or anything, I give them what I feel in the moment and take it with a grain of salt, because next week I may have a totally different view of whatever it may be.
Totally get that.
I always reserve the right to be wrong.
Amen. Don't we all? Depends on who you're talking to, I guess. But so my next question, I think, is I've got 4 questions left for you.
All right.
My next question is jazz or precision? I know that's a depends kind of a question, but I'm not asking for it depends. I'm asking you to pick one.
At face value, I'd say jazz.
I think that I agree, but a lot of people pick P, especially people say we're in Nashville. It's a P town. It's like, no,
But
it's not.
precision without heart is pretty boring.
Totally.
Like
well,
heart.
It also depends on what you're doing.
Well, yeah, and I guess whether you're listening to it or what you're striving to do.
It totally depends. But if I were to say, if somebody were to ask, this is just me, and I don't know that this is how you're answering the question or how anybody's ever answered it, but if I have to pick, I'm saying, which one can I do a wider scope with? And I think that the answer is jazz bass, 100%. If you really need a P bass sound, you can just turn that bridge.
Oh wait, are you talking about? Oh, you're talking about basses.
Yeah.
Oh, that's totally different. I'm gonna go with P bass.
Really?
I was so surprised.
all day. I love P basses.
I mean, I do too.
And I can't even tell you the difference between a P bass sound and a jazz bass sound. But a lot of times I hear something, I'm like, "What is that?" And it's a P bass, and I always love it. So,
Rob, I understand what you're saying, but
I
I find that I like P basses more often.
When something feels great, a lot of times it's a P bass playing it. When something sounds great and it's not as much about the feel of the bass part, a jazz bass is often in that moment it gives you more sounds. A P bass,
I trust that because you're probably amongst the three of us
it's a more limited tonal spectrum from a P bass.
And then if we really dive into it, it all depends on whose hands it's in. So,
well, sure, but that's not the question. My question is, if you have to pick one and you pick P bass, and I totally get that. My 65 P bass is one of the finest instruments that I have ever held in my hands. I play it all the time. It's amazing. Sometimes I have flats I can throw on it if I need that. I tend to just keep steel rounds on it because that does make it a little more versatile. But I can do a country gig with a jazz bass. I can't do a gospel gig with a P bass. I can, but it won't be stylistically authentic.
Fair enough.
But I think that you can get away, and a lot of dudes play jazz basses on modern pop stuff, on old classic country stuff. A lot of P bass too. Don't get me wrong. A lot of Stingray in this town. A lot of Guild Starfire in this town as well.
See those occasionally.
I haven't gotten into Stingrays yet.
I love everything that Craig Young's ever played on one, but I can't make it sound good at all.
Tone is in the hands.
It totally is, and it's like, it's to a certain extent, yes, guitar, but I feel like it's even more for bass, especially when it comes to finger style, because there's a lot of different things that you can do with the tip of your finger that you can fix with a pick, that you can't change the composition of your fingers and the way you attack a string. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't like the way this pick is sounding, like, you can go through 3 or 4 of them and maybe suss that out. But if it's a finger style part, you can't be like, Lyndon, let me borrow your index and middle finger real quick. You know what I'm saying? You just gotta you gotta figure it out. And for that reason, and I play a lot of bass gigs, but for that reason, bass is really frustrating for me to play because I cannot often achieve the sound that I'm going for.
I think that you've got thick fingers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, short and dense.
Yeah, you got bass player fingers. To me, your tone sounds good than I could ever get. And I play some bass, some bass gigs, but I don't think I could ever get the tone that you get on bass.
Try playing too hard.
No, man, I don't think that's it, because I think that sometimes because I'm not as skilled as you on bass, sometimes I see you playing softer than I would play a line, and it's possibly because you have more facility and you don't have to try as hard.
I certainly have more facility than none. I do have some, but in comparison to being able to grab a guitar, and I could just get there a lot quicker. And I struggle with what I'm hearing on bass. All right, my last 3 questions for
Welcome back, Tim.
Tim Galloway. Everyone shut up. Do you have... No, let me rephrase that. Whenever you guys are done laughing at me, we can finish.
I'm laughing at Tim, dude. I'm laughing with Tim. that was great.
I accept all of it. Whatever you guys are throwing down, I'm picking up. It's fine.
You said hi to somebody, and I look, and I just see just white light, and I can't see anything.
Yes, the boss of the house is home.
Oh, okay.
I was giving a quick salute so that I don't have to do latrine duty later. So you're stuck on Music Island.
Okay.
You have your 335 and your Princeton, or whichever axe and amp
That would
you
probably
choose.
be it. Yeah.
If you get a pedal, what's that pedal?
Memory Man.
I think that's the second time somebody said that.
I believe that's what Ford or somebody said.
Old Memory Man. Yeah. That
Big
would
body.
Be, yeah.
I've never actually played an original, an OG,
that's
but
so good.
I've heard a lot of recordings where someone has played on them. Well, I guess I'll just have to go find one. Thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.
Do you... No, not even do you. Off the top of your head, I don't want deliberation. If you have to pick 3 records to listen to for the rest of your life right now in the next 10 seconds.
Maroon 5, Songs About Jane, Weezer, the Blue Album, Beatles, Abbey Road.
I don't think that...
Off the top of my head.
I don't think that anybody's ever picked those before. I think that's great.
Somebody's picked Abbey Road before, surely.
I don't think so. I think that we've had a Beatles record, but I don't think it was Abbey Road. I think it was Revolver.
Yeah, that would probably be about number 4.
Pinkerton would be up there for me.
Yeah.
I like that record a lot. It's a Weezer album.
The
Yeah.
agency from the 1800s. So now, Tim Galloway,
All right.
guest of episode number whatever this is that I said
right.
earlier, gentleman scholar,
I am neither.
sweetheart of a human being. You are now in what we dumbly call the King's Court. Your choices are Albert, BB, Freddie, or X.
Then what was the last one?
King's X.
All right, go through those one more time.
Albert King, BB King,
Yeah.
Freddie King, King's X.
Of the King.
I like to say it real stupid like that so that it's confusing to everyone.
Albert King, I guess I would have to say. For no reason.
You know, why do you need one?
First one, yeah.
There's no reason. Why would you ever find yourself having to choose between those 4? Do you like? Let me ask you this question: have you ever listened to King's X?
Yes.
I'm a fan.
It's been a bit, but I have. I went through a little bit of a phase.
That's some really cool stuff. Doug Pinnick had got a cool voice, and the guitar player had a cool voice. He did some of 30% of the singing, I think.
Ty Tabor.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
And they all have really cool parts, and I'd like to throw that curveball. So, that said, today has been Mr. Tim Galloway.
Episode 27.
Episode number 27. The Nostradamus of North Carolina. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be sure to put any links to ways to hire Tim, or if he has a website, and I'll be sure to put his Twitter and his address up.
I don't even think I have Twitter. I don't even think I have Twitter anymore. Yeah, I don't have Twitter.
We'll put your old address up.
We'll put your old address up.
That's been a really pain. That's been a big pain in the ass to correct the address.
Oh my god, dude.
That was.
So many things you gotta do.
Yeah.
We'll put up your LinkedIn. We'll put up your Etsy. That's all the ironic things I can think of online.
Your OnlyFans.
Yeah, we'll put a link to your OnlyFans.
My farmers only.
Yeah, we'll put a link to your Farmers OnlyFans. Ladies and gentlemen, twisted and tweaking as always, Lyndon McCarty, our esteemed guest, Mr. Tim Galloway, and I am, of course, the idiot that makes everyone do this. And we will see you next time on this show that is going to end right now.
Way to go, Rob McMiller.
Rob McMiller.
Rob McMiller.
Give it up for the most Scottish episode of this podcast today.
Okay, that was pretty fun.
Thank you for listening to the Gear and Beer Podcast. Make sure and subscribe and turn on notifications for our channels, and if you haven't already, follow our Instagram and YouTube channels. We truly appreciate your support and ask that you please tell anyone you know whom you think might be interested in our podcast about gear and beer to help us grow and continue bringing in great guests from around the industry and beyond. Thanks again, and until the next episode.